Welcome to Future Role Model, a podcast that praises unconventionality and redefines what exactly it means to be a role model. And today I have one of my favorite ladies that I have recently become closer friends with, Laurie Douglas.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited.
I am too.
It's Saturday morning. We don't usually tape on Saturday mornings. And it's funny because it's not that early. Like I usually get up much earlier on Saturdays. But when you get up to podcasts, it's like I have to like do a regimen of like making sure that I don't have like shit in my throat.
Yeah. Vocal exercises.
I don't actually do any vocal exercises, but I kind of like have that like morning stuff that usually just like is there when I exercise. It's super sexy, guys. When we just had a really great conversation about rashes and eating gum and shitting colorful things.
Yeah.
So
I want shit a rainbow.
We're off to a really strong Saturday start. Tell me what you've been up to recently. Let's let people know what you're up to.
So I'm a comic. So I've just been doing a ton of comedy, which has been really great. And I'm now starting to produce some of my own shows. So that's been a whole nother experience. And I'm really liking that. I have like one show that I produce with one of my really good friends, Dina, and it's called That Time of the Month. And it's some of our proceeds go to Happy Period, which is this nonprofit that gives menstrual kits to homeless women and women underprivileged.
Oh,
and
that's
so
cool.
That for me, like, really fires me up.
Yeah, because you're giving back to a community that, something you stand for.
Yeah.
That's
so
really
that's been
cool.
really fun.
And what about projects? I know you have a fun show that you put out.
Yeah. So I'm like helping just kind of pitch it now, but it's called Hot Girls Getting High, and it's fun. And it's just like getting attractive women of like all types, getting them high, and then just talking about
stuff,
dicey topics, women's topics, all that kind of good stuff.
I love that.
Yeah.
And we had talked about this a couple months ago, and I was like, yeah, I don't really smoke pot anymore, which is funny because like the less and less that I got into marijuana, the more legal it became.
Yeah.
Now that it's like fully legal, I don't even want to touch this stuff, which is so funny. But I have to lay off of drinking for a while because of this whole thing that I've been going through, this skin thing. So yeah, it looks like I'm going to have to turn to something.
Oh my God, yes, you're going to have to get high with me sometime.
I'm going to have to get high with you. We'll just have to do it for fun. I have to test the waters again because you know how at least this is for me, if I get really high around people I haven't been high with before, I get crazy paranoid.
For sure.
And I think I'm the most bizarre person in the world. And then I can't stop laughing at myself. It's like a weird meltdown watching, watching somebody have a complete meltdown in front of you.
You're like, ugh.
But because I'm so vocal about everything I go through, I like talk about it.
You're like, I'm being weird. I'm weird. I'm being weird.
Exactly.
It's unfortunately like with weed, and it sucks to say it this way, but like you have to build a tolerance up because you do. Like if you, for a while when I would smoke, if I wasn't around the right people, I would be super weird. Like I would just reclude in and just not even want to talk. And they'd be like, she's so weird in the corner. But then you build up a tolerance and you find like the strand that works for you and that your body likes and that you can function on and be social on.
I think that's the thing. There's too many now. You know, it's just like liquors now where you're like, oh, I can get down with some Grey Goose, but I can't be shooting that fireball. Like it's the same.
No one should be shooting fireball. It's just disgusting. It's so wrong. It's like so illegal in a lot of other places.
Why?
Because there's all these different. I heard that
chemicals,
there was like antifreeze in it. I heard like some study that they found in Germany that they like took it off the shelf because they had something that wasn't edible in it.
Cinnamon syrup that gets you drunk, but you have to have a lot of it. So it probably just coagulates in your body.
Completely. You're just like,
I've just been waiting to use the word coagulate for a while. Thank God I got it out of my system. You don't get to use coagulate very often.
We should find another way to put that into this.
Okay. Sometime before the end of the podcast, you have to find a way to use coagulate, and then we'll be able to celebrate and we'll hit a vape pen or whatever.
We'll hit a vape pen. Life will be good.
So how did you get into liking marijuana?
I had dabbled in it in high school. The first time I ever got high was with a group of my friends. We were up in like my best friend's attic. And they had this bong that was so high. And they were like, you're not going to be able to get high. Like, supposedly like the first time you don't get high. So I smoked and left and said that I wasn't high. And we all went to Chipotle. And then I got a burrito and they couldn't even wrap it up. And I was like, okay, I'm definitely high. Like, I'm definitely high. And then like college, I dabbled in it a bit. And then when I moved to LA, one of my really good friends, she lived like 2 streets down, smoked so much weed. And so then that was like when I got my love for weed was during that time.
Oh, cool.
But I don't smoke all the time, but I definitely like it to like wind down.
Yeah, I mean, because my memories of smoking were, because I grew up in Wisconsin and we had like shitty weed.
Yeah.
You know, it was like bad. There was like sticks and berries in it and stuff.
Completely.
You have to like pick everything
Twigs.
out. You know, it was really good if there wasn't a stick in it. You're like, oh, I got the good stuff today.
Got the good nug.
And it never came like attached to itself. It was never in like a nug ball or whatever you'd call those.
It was just the
It was
shake,
like loose. Like it probably had oregano and like, you know, you just mix things up, you know. So I'm sure what we were smoking wasn't even, it was like probably 50% weed. But it was a kind of high that I loved because you'd get high for like 40 minutes, like intensely high. And then it would just be kind of done.
Yeah.
And then you could kind of work with it throughout the day where, you know. But the first time I remember being really fucking high was in college because I would try to rip. I would do like the what do they call those? The cannonballs where you do the bong rip and then just shotgun a beer and then let the smoke out. I do that in high school.
Holy shit.
Oh, I used to be able to do some cool stuff. And then got to college and I tried to do that one night at this party and I took a bit like a real bong because like most of the bongs we had in high school were handmade.
Yeah.
So they weren't really that great. And I had the spins. I was at a party. I had to lock myself in the like in a bathroom.
Yeah.
And that's how I met my first boyfriend in college. He like helped.
He helped you
helped
out?
me puke all night.
Oh, that's sweet. That's love right there.
It was for like 10 minutes. But yeah, so it like really, that was the first time I was like, maybe this isn't for me. And I kind of slowly weaned it away from it.
Which is crazy because I've definitely had those moments too. And I've never been like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kept forging
You're
through.
like, no, there has to be a better way.
I once did like a gravity bong hit. And then I was like in the bathroom for the rest of the night. And I was like, I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to swallow my tongue. I was like, this isn't, I swear. Like I remember praying and be like, dear Lord, please let me not be high anymore and I will never smoke weed again.
Oh my God. Well, because not being able to control the amount of time something takes is the worst part of it. Like my fiance, like 6 years ago, he was shooting something in Miami and somebody gave him THC pills and it was his birthday and he was away from home. And so he took they were really tiny and he took a bunch of them.
Oh no.
And it turned out he was high for like 30 hours.
See, that's frightening.
Yeah.
Especially whenever it's like anything that you digest, I feel like edibles, they give you a different type of high.
Yeah, from the inside out.
Yeah,
it's like
you're just like, oh, you're like melting.
Like by the time it reaches your brain, it's penetrated through all the other cells.
Yes.
So the rest of your body is so fucked up.
It's terrible. You can't, and you just want it to be done.
Exactly. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Texas. I grew up in Dallas, Texas.
Yes.
I was like in a suburb like 30 minutes outside of Dallas.
Yeah, you might be the first Texan I've had on here, I think.
And it was an interesting time. I loved it.
I feel like Texas is just an interesting place because I have a number of friends from Texas, but there's so much vacant land in Texas that I just don't really know what happens in there.
Oh my God. Yeah. I will never go to East Texas. Like keep me out. Like the East Texas, hell no. And even like West, there's so much. There's like some major country out there for sure.
Yes. Texas is like the Wild West.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was where the Wild West
I think it was too. I'm pretty sure it was too.
I've always wondered that, like, where are all these buildings? But it's like Arizona and fucking Texas, right?
Completely. And it was funny because I moved to Oregon and went to school out there. And when I would meet people, they were like, oh, you rode on a horse everywhere. And I'm like, no, actually Dallas was cooler than Eugene. So fuck off. Like it wasn't like... I never was like immersed in the countryside of Texas very much.
Was it pretty metropolitan where you were?
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah. There was definitely some like acreage and things like that, but there was places to go and there was Applebee's and nice restaurants and things. I mean, Applebee's is not a nice restaurant, but...
Well, I worked at Applebee's and I have to say it is the classiest of joints.
It's the best place ever.
But that's like how I grew up. Like our town was pretty small. It was like 14,000 or 12,000 or something when I was growing up. But we were right outside of Madison, Wisconsin. Yeah. So we had like the farms and the stuff to go like cruise and smoke and drink beer in our cars. But then we also could go to Madison and didn't feel like we were like completely in the boonies.
Totally. Like there was in high school every year, they would have a mud wrestling
Yes. Oh my God. That was allowed.
Yes. I mean, it wasn't like done with the school, but it was like the seniors, the juniors and the seniors. And then sometimes like the sophomores and the freshmen would do it too. But they'd have this like mudded lot. And
oh my gosh.
They would bring a bunch of like water and make this whole big
That
arena.
sounds amazing.
And it was intense. And it was just all girls that would mud wrestle because the guys can't mud wrestle for
so
fun.
they didn't just tell like they weren't like all the girls get in the mud, but they opened it up to everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so crazy.
It was interesting. And then there would be like, I did it a couple of years and it was fun. I wasn't like, I'm not super competitive or like, whatnot, but that's definitely like a Southern thing to do. Mud wrestling,
for sure. Like nobody,
super hick.
Nobody that grew up in Los Angeles ever saw that ever, unless they watched TV. You know, like something on. What was it like? What was your like home life or your friends' life growing up? Like, were you really social? Did you have?
I was super social. I always had like a really solid group of friends, and my parents were awesome. I grew up. It's very interesting because Texas. There's all these different subgroups of religions. Like that's a big thing out there. It's like very much so like all the Catholics.
Like everything's a hyphenate too. It's like I'm Catholic Protestant. Well, completely. I'm Catholic this, or I'm evangelical free / non-denominational.
I'm Methodist. Like there was just tons. And so I grew up and I was a Christian Scientist, which was like,
ooh, I don't know this one.
Christian Scientist where it's like you don't believe in taking medicine, you just pray.
Oh shit!
Yeah, so like I don't know where they got the scientist part.
Somebody's like bleeding, and they're like, "Let his arm grow
just
back."
pray. But my parents, like, I came out of my mom, and she was just like, "I don't know what to do with her." I was so hyper, and so she put me on medication at like 5 because she was like, "I don't even know what to do." So we weren't the best Christian scientists. There was definitely people that were like, "Ew, you're a Christian Scientist, like you're going to hell." So that was like a thing growing up that I dealt with a lot.
Interesting.
And then like my dad got sick with cancer, and then we had this moment of like, are we going to do chemo or are we just going to pray? And so my mom was like, absolutely not. We're putting him on chemo. We're going to do like as much as we can to make sure. So then during that time, there was this weird moment of like, I wasn't really accepted in that church. And then I wasn't really accepted in other churches. So there was that weird time and kind of placement, but I always have had really good friends that wasn't a big deal.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I feel like that because like that's something I haven't talked about a lot on this podcast yet is religion. Yeah. Because, you know, it's a weird subject because people don't really know how to identify in this town. And by that, I mean, we live in a very secularly facing city. So like even whatever you do, it's considered something you do in the privacy of your own home and space. And nobody really discusses it often. Like,
oh yeah. I mean, like someone will like show their tits before they talk about like their beliefs on God.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that kind of stuff.
Like I don't know a lot of my friends and colleagues' standings on their religion.
Yeah.
And like I go to church, I go to Mosaic. Sometimes I'm not like that Mosaic. Great about it. I go maybe like once or twice a month. But I grew up non-denominational, which is dangerous.
Yes.
And I make fun of that sometimes in my stand-up. But I don't know. It was really cool because I had like a youth group that I liked to go to. And, you know, I kind of had all these church friends. But as I started to get like cool in like middle school is when I had all my like friends at school too.
Yeah.
And they like couldn't cross.
Completely.
You know, you couldn't like mesh those two together. It was
exactly.
like, today I'm hanging with my church friends, so I can't hang with my real friends.
Completely. Like I can't go out with those people. You'd have to like hide. I remember because I was in the youth group like throughout high school and everything. And my group of friends, we were kind of like the prude group. We didn't really drink until later on. And I remember there was always like this weight of like our pastor who would be like, or like our youth pastor that was like, I saw your Halloween costumes. They were horrible.
Oh my God.
This like weird guilt where
I
you're
would
like,
have been shunned from my church
like
so many times
like,
over.
I remember we finally were just like, screw it. Like, I want to drink. I want to have fun. I don't want to feel crazy guilty about it, you know?
Yeah. And I justified it too. Cause when I started to drink, I was in, I was probably like 14 or so. But I was really good friends with this elder in my church and we would hang out after church and talk for like hours.
Yeah.
And he like I was basically like another kid of his in his mind.
Yeah.
And so he just always told me that I had a good head on my shoulders. So I was like, okay, if Clark thinks I have a good head on my shoulders, I'm going to turn out fine.
That makes a big difference though when someone tells you that, you know, and they're like, you're fine, you're okay. Like you can fuck up.
I was
it's
like,
fine.
cool, so I can party and it's not going to make me a bad person.
Completely. Like you're not completely defined by the decisions that
exactly.
you make,
When did you start partying? Like what age?
I started partying. I think the first time I ever got drunk was when I was 16.
Okay.
And I felt so bad about it.
Oh, let's talk about it because this is something that we haven't had a good discussion about. The first time drinking.
First time drinking, I was over at, there was this guy that used to have tons of people over at his house all the time. And he had like a guest house and that's where everybody went. And so that was like where you went to go get drunk. And so
we had a bunch of those too.
Yeah. So like I went there and I was drinking and I think I went with one of my very best friends, but she doesn't drink. She didn't drink at the time. And so we went and we were just like, let's get hammered. And I just got so drunk. And I remember staying the night, but I remember just like, I remember I was obsessed with this guy named Trey and I called him like 30 times.
Oh,
like
God.
30 times. And we were like kind of talking. And then after that, he was like, I'm sorry, but like you called me 30 times. Like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And I was just like devastated. Like, please. I like don't even want to know what the message is.
You had to learn that lesson so young.
Oh my God, yeah. Like he was just like, you actually can't do that.
Yeah.
And
Holy shit.
like so drunk. I remember I had to meet my stepdad's kids the next day. And I was really hungover. I was bad. Like I think I drove home, which is terrible.
Oh no.
I had kind of a bad experience, but it kept me drinking. But I like had like kind of an eye-opening experience that first time. Like I had a guy, the guy there had like, I'd passed out there and he like tried to stick it in me when I was drunk. And at that time I was like, I was very like, I was a virgin. Like that was definitely a thing that like people knew at my school. And I remember like, that happened. And then I woke up and I was like, I have to leave. Like, I can't stay at this place. And so like, I drove home. And then my mom and my sister were like at the door, like, where were you? How could you do this? And then there was this whole talk. But at that time, I did not tell anybody that happened because I felt so guilty. I felt like it was my fault. Like, I got drunk. I shouldn't have done that. And then I had to like be hungover and then meet my like stepbrother.
Like a gross way to experience the first time.
I was like, oh my God. And then he was like, I think 9. I can't remember how old he was. He was young. And I remember his dad had this staircase and I was sitting on a chair below the staircase and there was like a TV and he was just dropping this ball on top of my head and then like running back up and dropping the ball on my head. And I was like so hungover. And my mom was just sitting there smiling because she knew that was like the biggest payback I could ever get for being hungover.
Being annoyed by a child.
And having the worst hangover ever.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah. But I remember that experience. I was like, oh my God, I have to be better about the people I surround myself with when I drink.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. I mean, and and not to excuse any guy's behavior too, because it's not an excuse to do anything that a woman doesn't want to do, but nobody knows how to handle their liquor at that point.
No.
The men don't have a wherewithal. They're not even men yet. They're boys, and then you don't have a wherewithal of like what you can and cannot handle. And so it's just everybody's a mess. Like
completely.
Like I think all women have experienced something like that when they first start drinking. And it's just, it's something you have to be like, okay, I have to at least have enough control over my surroundings to or try.
Totally.
You can't always
be doing that. It's hard sometimes.
Yeah,
but
of course. But if you're in a home, in a hometown environment, because at least, where we grew up, my town was, we generally would be at one person's house all together.
Yeah, exactly.
So you had to just kind of navigate who you trusted staying with.
Yeah, and who's your friend? Who actually is your friend? Because I remember, I think at that, I think my friend had left, and then the people that were there were not my friend. Nobody in that group was my friend.
And
that's when you kind of are and you kind of have to learn too that you can't just it took me a very long time. I finally learned, you can't just drink and just be like, here I am, I'm having fun. You have to be realizing that you got to be a little in control. You can't just let go.
Yep. And that when I travel, I went to Prague by myself 10 years ago. And it's funny because I was just pulling up the pictures for another friend's podcast. But the first 2 days was everyone wants to attack me. I didn't really think that, but when I was out drinking, I was like, oh, I'm going to just have a half of a drink.
Completely.
But then by the third day, I met this really good group of Australians, and I was like, these guys I can go ham with.
Completely.
And these guys will make sure I'm fine. And so like, then I did, you know, but yeah, I've always traveled that way too, where I'm like, all right, if I don't really know. My first time drinking, we walked to like 10 of my different friends' houses while their parents were still at work and filled a water bottle up with a little bit of alcohol from each house. And we didn't know that you can't just do that because it ruins you.
It destroys.
Yep. And we drank that at my friend Matt's house. It's funny because his parents were very Christian. He had 2 other brothers. So there's 3 boys in the family, and we would party there the hardest, but his parents were game safari hunters.
Oh, damn.
So they were like crazy religious, but they like hunted like giraffes and zebras and stuff.
Did they have a whole like...
Their house was covered in heads, covered. And so the first night I drank, I woke up in a room with like 18 different safari animals staring at me, like judging me. You're like, oh my God. And I was like, this is terrible. And it's so funny now because he was one of the hardest partiers in my high school. And then shortly after we graduated, he became a devout Christian, stopped drinking, and moved to Africa, married a woman from Africa, and is a pastor. And I think he's still a pastor in Africa. Wow. So it's like this weird full circle thing that his parents used to like hunt game in Africa, and like now he's a pastor there.
That's so nuts.
It's a crazy thing. Like, but you know, he's like super happy, and that's all that matters.
Completely.
But I remember always thinking that was so bizarre that these people that were like, I love God, it like had an elephant on their wall,
which is nuts.
Which is fine. Like, I mean, that's what they wanted to do, and I think you have to have a certain license to do that, which nowadays would not be a thing.
No.
But yeah, I never knew anybody else who did that besides this family. Just like a very funny family to be into that.
I know. In the South, there's a lot of people like that.
Oh, I'm sure.
There's tons of heads everywhere in people's homes.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a number of times that I've woken up in rooms where I've been like, what is my life? Like there was one time in Indianapolis, I was playing in Indianapolis and I didn't have a hotel reservation for the night with my friend that I was with. So this couple ended up taking us in for the night that we just met at a bar, and I woke up in their gun room.
Oh, shit.
And that's like the scariest room you could ever wait. But they were the nicest people ever. They just had like a shit ton of
tons of
guns. And I woke up in that room on a mattress, and I was like, I think I need to change some things.
Completely. I once had sex with a guy, and there was like a lot of heads in the room.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is weird.
It feels weird,
like I'm
right?
having like an orgy right now.
Yeah. It feels like the same as when like a dog is on the bed with you and you're like, get the dog off the bed.
Like, I don't want this. I once was giving my ex-boyfriend head, and my cat like crawled up and was just like watching it. I was like, I can't do this right now. I just can't. We got to get rid of this
She's like
cat.
batting at it.
She's like, just moving her head up and down.
When did you finally move to Los Angeles?
I moved to Los Angeles 5 years ago. So I did it in 2013, like right after I graduated college.
Okay.
I moved out here.
What'd you go to college for?
I did advertising and electronic media.
Okay, so it's doing a lot for you now.
Yeah, completely. It's like, there's elements of it that are nice. Like when I was in school, they were obsessed with pushing like social media, talking all about that. That was huge at my school. They were like really innovative in knowing all of that at University of Oregon, which was amazing. Because I feel like I got to learn like Final Cut. I got to learn Photoshop. I got to learn like how to make a blog. I mean, I'm not doing any of that now, which I should be doing. But like when I edit videos or anything like that, like I get to use a lot of the stuff that I learned from there.
That is very handy, actually.
Yeah.
Saves you a lot of time and money to hire other people.
Completely.
Well, money, I guess, not time.
I know. Like that's the biggest thing is once you do it, then you're like, damn it.
It takes forever.
It takes so long.
I was trying to teach myself how to edit a couple years ago, and I can just do the most basic things, but it is time consuming.
It's so time consuming.
And I'd rather just pay somebody to do it.
Completely. And that was a hard thing for me when I first moved out here was I was like, what am I going to do? Because I have skills in like editing and some of that and like advertising and I can do broadcasting, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want anything to impede on my acting and comedy when I moved out here. So I always was torn about it. And sometimes I wish like maybe I had gone in a direction where I was able to sort of establish myself in that realm.
Yeah.
Because I surf and stuff like that, you know, and I have to bartend as a means to an end versus like doing something that my degree would enable me to
but
do.
I mean, here's the thing, and this is why a lot of people do choose to work in the service industry. You can come and go from it without feeling bad.
Mm-hmm.
You're replaceable, which actually feels nice when it's a job you don't really necessarily love or are passionate about.
Completely.
And you don't have to, you can clock out and you're just out. You're just done.
Totally.
So, I mean, I get why a lot of people, I have a lot of friends who have crazy degrees and they could be producing this or directing that, but their passion is to do this one thing.
Yeah.
So they're like, I'm going to work in service because it gives me that flexibility.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that.
And you just need that flexibility.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
Did you start doing comedy in Oregon?
I didn't know. I always wanted to. Like, I'd always talk. I was like, I'm going to go do a set somewhere. There was like one place in Portland that they talked about where like you had 5 minutes and then they like shut the lights on you if you like went
Was that like Harvey's or something?
I think so. Like, I never went and did it. And then right when I moved out here, I got like, I don't even know how I got the email or something. It was Michael Q's show.
Oh, sure.
And it was like in the main room at the Comedy Store. And it was like my first time ever doing stand-up. So like I wrote my like 5 minutes and was like so stoked. I brought all my friends and had a fucking blast.
Yeah.
When I got off stage, this woman was like, "You had cocaine? You have cocaine?" I was like, "No, that's just my personality." But I had a lot of fun. But then I like exhausted. I didn't know how to do it. Like I didn't know the process of stand-up.
Well, and that's the thing that happens to a lot of people is they'll like get that first show under their wing and they'll actually do well. And then they're like, oh, I could do this. And they have their second show and they bomb, which they portray that really well in the show Marvelous Miss Maisel.
100%.
Right? Because you get spoiled by the fact that you're naturally good at something, but you're not going to be good at it all the time.
Completely.
And bombing happens to all of us. And like, it's the best wake up call because then after that, you have the choice of if it's for you or if you're like, oh, I want to redeem myself or fuck this. What was I thinking?
Completely. And also I think seeing like the beauty in bombing and seeing that is like every time you go on stage, it's always a learning process and there's always something to gather from it.
Yes.
And actually bombing can sometimes be better than just like having a mediocre show where like, if, like people laugh, but like you're not actually really killing the room or doing anything like that. You're just kind of like surviving up there.
Yeah. We were just talking about mediocrity before we started the podcast. There's so many people, because like I've had this like skin thing since I painted myself on Halloween. It's like the
worst. Basically
what happens if anybody out there paints their entire body like I really like to do too often.
You looked amazing though.
Thank you. I loved it. I was a Venus de Milo and the paint that I used, like when I took it off, I used really harsh soaps and it like stripped my skin of all the natural stuff. So I do hot yoga and Muay Thai. So I picked up something in my skin. Your skin would normally just fight. Yeah. But all that good stuff was off of it. So I've been dealing for like 2 weeks with this skin thing, and all these doctors I keep going to like don't really have an answer, and they keep trying to give me like the most basic stuff. Mm-hmm. The first doctor prescribed me jock itch cream. I'm like, this is on my arms and my back. Like it's not jock itch, dude. You know what a ball sack is? I don't have one of those on my back. Okay, like this is not the right region.
This is not me ball sack cream.
So if there's any good dermatologists out there that would like to see me this week, let me know. But we were talking about that, how there's so many doctors. Like, I've been into the doctor 6 times in the last week, different doctors too, and nobody really gives a shit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like that's with a lot of things. Like, you don't even realize that.
It's too bad. I'm like
going and trying to find a doctor and finding one that actually is like well-read on journals and keeping up, or like a dentist that like is keeping up with trends, and like, there's not a lot of them that do that.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying. Like, why would you want to pay so much money to go through medical school, become a doctor, all that time and energy just to be a mediocre doctor?
Completely. But I think that's kind of like, there's people who have been doing stand-up for 10 years and are still doing their bit from their first year.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
There's just people that are just
okay with squeaking by.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what it is. It's just like not having the balls to be more awesome.
Yeah. Or just like your priority, like their priority isn't, they're just like I feel like there's so many people that are just
coasting.
They're just coasting. They're in, what is it called? Like autopilot. They're just moving through, just not even really present.
And they just say they are a thing.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of people that identify with just being a thing, and then they don't really have like something that they're working towards, which is really interesting to me, because I'm like, what? You're not really a thing ever. You're just you. And then all these things that you want to do are the things that you do. Yeah. You know, you're not it's like, I'm not a comic. I do comedy,
Completely.
you know, like I find it different.
You have to, I feel like for me, I've noticed that I have to be working towards a specific goal.
Yeah.
And if I'm not, then I'm just running around with my head cut off.
Exactly. What do you think you're most excited about that you're working on now?
I'm writing a pilot right now and I'm super excited about that. And I'm that's something I'm very, very excited about. And I have a couple things that I've written that now I'm kind of like moving into my like new phase of editing it and then trying to eventually get them shot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have like 3 projects right now that I'm working on. But the one that I'm writing now, I'm super excited about. And I feel like it's going to be really cool. So I can't wait for that. And then that time of the month, I'm really excited about. I have a larger goal with that show. And so I'm super excited to start like fostering it and trying to develop like my end goal for that show. And so I'm super excited.
We had talked because I want to partner with that eventually when I get one of my entrepreneurial things up and running.
We need to talk about that because I was thinking about that actually yesterday about that. So we have to. I feel like we're like right aligned on that.
Me and Laurie bond because we're not only super attractive and brilliantly funny, but we are entrepreneurs as well.
Yes, we are.
Because what if everybody just walked around and talked about themselves like that? I think it would actually be like okay.
It would be okay. I feel like I've met a lot of people that talk that way.
I know.
But then have nothing to show for it. I'm like, I always hear people and I like believe everything they say. Like I'm definitely a little naive. When I first moved out here, I just took everything that everyone said as truth. And so I would be so intimidated by all these like open mic comics that would be like saying all this stuff and they'd like kind of throw me off. I'd be like, oh my God, I don't deserve to be here.
Yeah.
And then I realized like, actually, like most people are full of shit. Like
a lot of people
the ones that come through that just talk your ear off about everything that they're doing aren't really doing anything.
Yep.
And to not be intimidated by that.
Yeah. I mean, because that used to happen to me a lot of times, specifically hanging out at the Comedy Store because there was just so many dudes that were always trying to like vie for whoever was around. I guess I shouldn't say it like that. It wasn't like you were just being like ganged up on by all these like comic dudes. But I mean, it is, and I've talked about this before, guys that are in comedy that are like less attractive, especially, they know that their comedy is their calling card. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like that's what makes you hot, like your personality.
Completely.
Like you may not be Brad Pitt, and I don't mean less attractive in a bad way, but I mean you may not be like, you know, the hottest dude on a planet, but you're hot because you have this like brilliant mind. You know what I mean? So like, of course, guys use that. And so they try, like, I used to get talked to all the time by certain people. And I was just like, you guys have no idea what you're doing.
Completely. Or like, I remember when I first started and I would go to like the Ha-Ha for open mics and stuff and be waiting to go up. And I would be so nervous. And I'd be like waiting in the lobby to sign up and have it start. And it was, I feel like earlier on, I feel like there was less women at open mics.
Oh, for sure.
You know, like I didn't.
It was like 95% guys.
Like because I started back in 2013, but I was super inconsistent. But I remember I was like waiting and I was so nervous to do an open mic. And this guy was like, why are you even concerned? I'm not even going to be listening to jokes. I'm just going to be looking at your tits. And I remember like hearing that and feeling so shitty about myself, which like at that time, like now, if I heard that, I'd be like, I wish you had something I could fucking look at while you're up there because you're just ugly as fuck. Yeah. But like at that time, I just remember feeling like, oh my God, I'm just like, no one wants to hear my voice. No one wants to hear me. And then it was like, don't fucking go there.
Yeah.
That doesn't serve you.
It doesn't. And also you have to kind of, I don't want to say play the game because I've never really operated in that mentality, but you kind of do. Like, all right, if you want to give me some stage time because you think I'm attractive, great. Yeah. I'm going to fucking take it.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to keep working on getting really good. Yeah. You know, or the best version of myself is what I always say.
I think, like learning, never feeling guilty for opportunities that you get and making sure that you're ready for those opportunities. You know what I mean? Because everyone gets an opportunity for different reasons.
Yeah.
And it can be like strictly off of a look. But it's true. Like once you get there, if you fucking bomb, you bomb and you're probably not going to get booked again.
Exactly.
With that person.
Exactly.
So it's like.
So take it. Yeah. Come out of it like a champion.
Completely.
What do you think you've made? Like, have you made some mistakes in entertainment that you think you want to share?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I've not done things when I didn't feel like I was ready and I like have set back. And then I think in some ways it's good. I think it's good to know how far you can push yourself and whether or not you're going to be able to rise to the challenge.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes I've like set out on someone who's been like, if you give me a script, like I'll pass it along to this person. And then I'm like, I've wondered like, okay, well, what are the ties if I give this like, does this person actually, does he want to help me? Or is this like, I haven't gone to meetings because I wasn't sure of like
people's intentions,
the intentions of somebody. And I've set out on a lot of things that I feel like could have maybe taken me to a different place. But I also too was not sure what the intentions were of that person. So I didn't even try to go down that road.
It's a good thing to be cautious of too, because I've run into that with a couple of my scripts where somebody just wants to attach themselves and, you know, bring money in. And some people there's one person that I'm kind of working with that he's awesome.
Yeah.
And like, great. If somebody wants to find money for you, then great, attach yourself and, you know, we'll do the whole rigmarole.
Yeah.
But there's so many people that are just trying to get a piece of something and they don't even know what that is.
Yeah. Like I've met some people, I'm like, oh my God, he wants to mentor me. And then I'm like, no, he wants to mentor your vagina. Like, let's step back. Like, let's realize this. Like, stop being naive. But I feel like I've missed out on like some opportunities just being maybe too cautious. But
yeah,
I feel like there is like another side to it that could not work out. Like I feel like you get those in.
Yeah.
Like you can't ignore your intuition.
Yep. Gut is always a big, because, you know, also there's plenty of projects I've had that I've been really excited about that they go the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't even say wrong direction. I try to not ever think of anything as the wrong direction because there's just a learning process and something either clicks or it doesn't at the right time. You know, that's just kind of what it is. But I had a show that I was really, really excited about and created this whole world with another female comic. And we were in the finals with NBC. But then if it doesn't end up going with that space, you can't use it anywhere else. You know what I mean?
A holding on it, right?
Yeah. Or like once a network has seen it, nobody else wants to touch it. It's like, oh, that network had first dibs. Well, nah.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of one of those weird things. So it's, you know, it always sounds good to be like, oh, somebody at this blah, blah, blah network wants to read this. But sometimes it's better to not.
Yeah.
So I get that. I mean, I get why you would err on the side of caution when it comes to those things because you'd rather just be able to hold on to your shit.
Completely. But then sometimes I'm like, well,
maybe somebody should see this.
Like, we need something coming.
Well, we'll talk because maybe we can help each other out with some of this stuff.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
What's going on with your Hot Girls Getting High show?
Well, right now he's the guy friend of mine. His name's Freddie and Frederick Taylor, and he has his production company called Tomorrow TV Pictures, and so he's been, I think, now like releasing them on digital shorts, and so I think he's trying to find a platform for them now, but I haven't talked to him in we haven't really talked about the series in a while because he's based in Atlanta. And so he'll come and make periodical trips. And
he's one of those people that's actually working a lot.
I know. He's like, I'm like busting ass out here in Atlanta. I'm making money. He's doing his thing.
Dude, I mean, we're thinking about taking a trip out to Atlanta because I was offered representation out there as well. Yeah. And I was like, I'll work out of both cities.
I think it's smart. You might as well. I have a guy friend that moved out there and he's doing things. He's booking stuff now. But I feel like it's always hit or miss because I hear stories about people moving out there and running into the same things that they ran out
of course. I mean, you're always starting over whenever you move somewhere. Yeah. So I would never, I love Los Angeles. Yeah. Like I love it here.
It's amazing. You really can't beat the weather.
Yeah. And I don't mind the people. People always think people in LA suck. And trust me, there are plenty of those. But like I always say, in a city of 9 million people, you're going to meet a lot of idiots.
Oh, completely.
It's fine because I meet a lot of great people too. I meet way more great people.
Yeah. And I think the city has a lot of people who are dreamers and people who are inspired and people that are so enthralled about creating content and they like love what they do.
Yeah.
And I feel like some of that you can't find anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really beautiful when you meet somebody and you both can just like be inspired and talk about the things and sometimes even like come together and collaborate on something that you might not have been able to do on your own.
It's a big thing. I'm a big collaborator.
Yeah, I think it's so huge. I work so much better with another person. I just do.
Well, or just having somebody to check in with. Like if you have, I have a couple different partners that I work with on different projects, and just we set deadlines for each other, and you have accountability then. Yeah. So you actually have to do this. It's like if you had a buddy that was your homework buddy. If I had a homework buddy when I was growing up, I probably would have never procrastinated on stuff. Completely. But I would wait till the last minute to do a lot of things.
I'm such a procrastinator.
But then I would do them really well at the last minute.
You need that fire. There's some people I really think you just like need that fire under your ass.
And I what do they say? It's not procrastinating, it's prioritizing. So a healthy amount of procrastination is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Every day on my Google alerts, like 75 things. Such a rude ambulance. You hear that? Ambulance? So rude. I have like 75 Google tasks that go off every day, and I like push like 40 of them to like Thursday.
Yeah, you're like, not today.
Because I just will set, like, as I'm thinking of stuff, I'll just put it in a Google task for a week from today.
Completely.
And then I've put like 100 things on the next week. I'm like, nope, this is too much.
I'm so guilty of that too. I feel like though sometimes when I get like really focused and then I'm like, I need to do like 30 things, and then I like get overwhelmed. I'm just like, I need to take a break from just thinking about all the shit I need to do.
Well, and sometimes you want to just focus on one and do that one really well. Like some days I just have to pick the one thing that I'm like, this really needs to get done. I need to get this done really fucking well.
My stepdad's very, very good at, he's just always gets things done. He's such a hard worker. And one of the things he's told me is like, pick 3 things in a day. Like if you pick more than 3 things to do, most likely you're probably not going to finish all of them. But if you pick 3 things and you just get those done in the morning or the soonest that you can, and do the first one is the least one that you want to do. It's like swallowing the frog. It's like the one that you're dreading the most.
That's a really good piece of advice.
Get that one done first. And then you get those 3 things. And once those 3 things are done, then you can like do your day.
Yeah.
I don't do it all the time, but it's definitely like whenever that's something that he's really instilled in me to do. I guess I'm not like super instilled. I'm still close to being instilled in it.
Your half installation?
Halfway there. I'm just like, just like a not finished house, but I'm going. Yeah. But that's something I think is really good.
Yeah. And do you have a good relationship with your family?
I do. I'm so close. I probably am like codependent with my mom and my sister.
That's cool.
I feel like that like came from.
No, that's adorable.
I love, like I talked to them like 3 times already today, which is ridiculous. Like I'm sometimes like, we can't talk all the time, but my sister's pregnant right now. So I'm like dying. I can't wait.
Oh, you get to be cool. Hi, Auntie Laurie.
I know.
Is this her first?
This is her first.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm so excited. I can't wait because I have baby fever, but I can't have a baby right now. So this is the perfect.
See, I don't know, when does baby fever hit people? Like I have zero desire to have a child come out of my body.
Oh yeah.
Ever. And I am a bunch of my best friends are having kids or have 2 kids or whatever. So I'm like cool auntie to all these great kids. Yeah. That I can just pick and choose when I want to see them, and it's perfect.
Perfect. When they're bad, you just like,
just give them back.
Yeah.
And so I don't know.
I think it's different with every person.
Yeah.
I think too, it's like timing. And sometimes it's just your uterus is like, baby.
Which is so strange. Because I have one of my comic friends, she was on one of my episodes, but she lives in New York City. And her boyfriend they've talked about getting married, but they're not engaged or anything. They don't have any plans, but she's actively trying to like get him to have a kid with her.
Yeah.
And she's like, I just want to have a kid in New York without being married.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's the last thing. I would not want that at all.
I like New York. Like I can't even imagine grocery shopping in New York. Like that stresses me out.
No, but she is the greatest. I'm like, dude, you'd be like the dopest mom in the world. Yeah. But like such an interesting thing to think about. Every time I see a pregnant person, and this is going to sound so awful, but I am kind of grossed out by really pregnant people.
Yeah, well, it is kind of like...
Sorry to say that.
It's just...
I saw one of my best friends when she was like about to pop, and I was like, oh God, oh, that's so horrifying.
I hear that like your feet get bigger, which like my feet can't get any bigger. Like I can't have bigger feet than what I have now. Like I hear that you get like a size and a half to a size bigger.
What?
That's what one of my friends told me.
Oh my gosh. Just the stuff, like looking at, it makes me feel like we're all just aliens. When you see that, I mean, I get that animals and creatures they procreate every day and that's like a normal thing. but the idea, like, I kind of wish people just laid eggs, you know?
Can you imagine though? Like, you're like, I had to go home and sit on my eggs for a couple of hours. And then like the really rich people who just like have an incubator.
You had just have an egg nanny.
Yes. You're just like, I can just watch them, make sure they're good. That would be kind of nice though. Like the thought of the fact that, and it's a really vain thing to think about, but like it fucking takes a toll on your body. It takes a toll. Like it stretches your muscles. It does so much to your body.
It's freaky. So maybe that's something we can incorporate into your time of the month show. Right. Like maybe be thankful you have your period because you're not doing that right now.
No, I think that though every time. I'm like, I don't want to have my period because it sucks.
Yeah.
Every time my period comes, I like think that I'm bipolar. Like I'm like, something's not right with me. And then I start. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But
dude, yeah, we have a lot of things to deal with. Men don't like, I always tell this to my fiance. I'm like, you're a very lovely human for dealing with some of the roller coasteriness that I can harness.
Oh yeah.
Because when I'm out in the world, I'm really level-headed. Mm-hmm. So nobody else has to deal with any of that.
Yeah.
And when I get home, it's like your safe space. So that's when you're like, rah!
You like let your hair down. And you're like, ah!
You like come out of,
here I am.
The fury.
The fury.
Are you dating anybody seriously right now or no?
No, not at all.
Are you looking to?
I am a bit, but I also too, just like I want it to happen organically, but I feel like I don't really meet a lot of people because I'll be like either doing stand-up or I work at a bar, or I feel like all of my friends don't really have any single friends to introduce me to because everyone I know is single.
Yeah.
But I'm like interested in dating, but at the same time, I'm so focused right now that I can't. It's hard for me to think about incorporating another person right now into my life.
It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Like it worked out perfect for me to start dating my then boyfriend when I first moved to LA because you're kind of just in a spaz mode as it is. You're trying to just you're doing these shows. You're just trying to figure your shit out and like where you're going to live and like buy your car and like having a relationship start during that time where you're like, I've had a stressful day of figuring out life stuff. You want to just drink and like
completely.
It was perfect. And once it's, you already live with the person, then it's like you can do your own thing and focus again.
And I think when it clicks, it clicks. Because I was with somebody in high school and college for 6 years. I thought I was going to marry him. And then when we broke up, I was like wrecked. And I remember thinking like, I never want to find so much of my self-worth in another person. And so I think now I've gone like in the opposite way where I'm like determined to like find my success and my like self-esteem to be completely based on myself and not based off of like a guy or attention from men. Yeah. And trying to change my idea of like what is my currency and what am I bringing to the table. And so that's been something for me that's been
such an adult thing.
Like it's been
so adult of
mine. But now I'm like, bitch, you need a man. Like you need something every once in a while. You need a guy.
Are you a big book person? Are you?
I've been now into like audiobooks recently. I've been like getting in traffic and just listening to
I need to get into those. I love touching paper.
It is really nice though, holding it in your hand.
Yeah, like actually touching a book. Like I have books that I've read on my phone and stuff like when I'm at the gym, but it just doesn't. I can read like fantasy that way, but if I'm reading something with grit in it, I have to touch the book.
There's something to that for sure. I agree. I'm just not the best reader. Like I fall asleep when I read and stuff like that. So like whenever someone's reading to me, I'm just like,
you just rewatch it like 5 times in a row.
Completely. I'm like, I missed that.
Or rewatch it, reread it. Because I'm guilty of doing that too. But I keep trying to like, I'm not a big self-help book person because I don't know. Some of that gets a little bit wallowy to me. Like I know there's some really good ones out there, but I do read a lot of like things that feel motivational. What is the one by the author of Eat, Pray, Love, Elizabeth Gilbert? I'm reading not that. I haven't read Eat, Pray, Love. What is the other one? Big Magic.
Oh, I haven't read that.
Big Magic is so cool.
I need to check
Anybody
it
out there needs to read it. Basically, it's I love really good writers, and I'm working on my one woman show right now, and the book it's a little bit more gritty and raw than even my stand up is, which is a really fun thing to explore. When you put something into words, it just on paper it just comes out so differently than if you were to perform it.
Oh, 100%.
And I love that. I love seeing the disparity between the two. So this book, she basically personifies ideas. So it's kind of a nice freeing thing to read about because she basically says ideas aren't just yours. Ideas are like an entity that comes knocking on you looking for an opportunity. And if you don't accept it, it finds somebody else. So she's like, there's not people out there just stealing your work. Like the idea found somebody else to be a host.
I got the chills off of that.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I mean, that's obviously a very long story short of how great the book is, but it's a nice way to think.
Yeah.
Because we get very caught up, not just in entertainment, but in life, thinking that somebody, somebody's out to get us or somebody wants to steal this from us, or you feel ownership over a lot of things that you don't fucking own.
No, you have no ownership.
And that's the problem with a lot of people, whether it's sexual behavior or emotional behavior, feeling like something is yours and it's not.
Yeah.
No, zero ideas we have are original.
It's so true.
And I will meet up with people that I haven't really hung out with, and we'll talk about something we're working on, and there'll be a lot of similarities to something. And we're like, well, maybe we just collaborate on this.
Completely. Or like you think of a sketch idea and then I was doing a sketch and I had an idea with a separate group of girls and I had another group of girls that reached out to me and literally they were the exact same idea.
Yeah. And that happens more often than not. That's how me and one of my partners, we came up with one of the series that we're pitching right now. Because we met up, we were like, we want to make something. We had 5 ideas that we each brought, and one of them was exactly the same. Yeah. We were like, well, there it is. That's the one we're going to make.
So true. There is this idea, though, like ownership of something that you don't even have yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I think, I've really dived into my own personal stories with this like Diary of a Bad Fiance stuff or with my stand-up, because I'm like, those are my stories. And I feel like a lot of people will relate.
Yeah.
And that's why I hope they do. I hope other people have similar stories. It's not just me.
Completely.
I'm not the only one that's been engaged.
Definitely.
I'm not the only person that has a mom,
No, it's so true. I think sometimes too, when you get into it, you think that you have to have all these crazy out of like wild ideas. And at the end of the day, like the most basic thing is you and what you've experienced, and no one else can have. Well,
nobody else can be you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you manifesting an idea is going to be different than Joe manifesting the idea.
Completely.
So it's fun. It's a good read. Anyway, I wish I was getting sponsored by her and her book, but I'm not. I just really like it.
Hey.
I find there's a lot of things that I'll like drop recently, and I'm like, I should just start hitting up these people and be like, hello.
I talked about
I'll talk about your book. Then people would be like, why does she fucking talk about that book on every podcast?
She said, let me tell you about this book.
Every episode I'm like start out with like, I'm reading this book, and they're like, how long has she been reading this one book for?
Like a year passes, same book.
What do you think you're the most excited about coming up?
I am the most excited about that time of the month.
Yeah.
And not my period, but the show.
But both, because then it means you're not.
Yes. Then it means I'm not pregnant. But yes.
I'm excited to talk to you about it, actually.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of themed shows like that are doing really, really well, especially with festivals and stuff, because it's clear what the message is.
Yeah. Completely.
And it's nice when people come to a show and they know exactly what they're going to get. They're not going to be like, oh, these women were there talking about their women problems.
Yeah.
What did you fucking think it's called that time of the month?
Completely. But yeah, that's definitely probably.
What about shows? Anything you want to plug?
I have a show this Wednesday at Brea Improv I think it's at 8:30, and if you bring a can, you get in for free.
Oh, so it's a food drive.
Yeah, it's a food drive.
Amazing.
So I'm so excited about that one.
And on social media, is that where you post most of your shows?
Yeah.
Go ahead and plug your social.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, Laurie.Douglas. And then I also
notice the period in it.
Period's there. Some bitch is Laurie Douglas on there, and she has like 100 followers. Tried to get the name. She won't give it to me.
Laurie, Laurie.
Yes.
Douglas.
Douglas, one S, not Doug ass. And then my website is laurie-douglas.com.
You really like your dots and dashes.
I do. I live for them.
Are you good at Morse?
Actually, that's one of my big talents.
Morse code?
No.
Oh, I was like, that's so random.
Let's dive into that. But yes.
I started learning Morse when I was playing G.I. Joes when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah?
But it probably wasn't actual Morse. But
no.
But we had a book of it and we would try to do it with like the walkie-talkies.
That's amazing.
I wish I still knew it. Like if I were to be stranded on an island, I'd be fucked. I'd be absolutely fucked.
Oh, I'd be so screwed.
But if there was rum, I'd be happy. I'd be happy and fucked.
Yeah, which is good. Sometimes that's not bad.
And I'm your host, Natasha Hansen. You can find me at NPH Comedy on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow the podcast at Future Role Model on Instagram or at Role Model Pod on Twitter. You can follow the entire network of amazing podcasts and podcast hosts at Comedy Pop-Up or at CPU Podcast. Anything else?